The air down there doesn't move. No wind, no echo, just silence. The kind of silence that makes you aware of how much rock is above your head. How many thousands of years of weight are pressing down. I had a camera in one hand and a thermal scanner in the other, and I remember thinking, nobody has breathed this air in a very long time. Maybe nobody in recorded history. What I filmed that night, I'm still processing what it means. For decades, the official position of Egyptian authorities has been remarkably consistent on one point. There is nothing beneath the Sphinx. No chambers, no tunnels, no hidden rooms. Just solid limestone bedrock, carved by ancient hands, sitting quietly on the Giza Plateau. That's the story. That's what the textbooks say. That's what every mainstream documentary confidently repeats. But here's what those documentaries don't mention. In 1991, a team of geophysicists from Boston University ran seismic tests around the base of the Sphinx. They weren't looking for drama. They were conducting routine subsurface mapping, the same kind of technology used to find oil deposits and underground water systems. And what they found stopped them cold. Anomalies. Rectangular anomalies, consistent with man-made cavities, directly beneath the left paw of the Sphinx and along its southern flank. Not natural, not random, rectangular. The lead researcher, Dr. Thomas Dobecki, published the findings. The response from Egyptian authorities was swift. Access was revoked. The team was removed from the site, and the Supreme Council of Antiquities quietly ensured that no independent seismic survey of the Sphinx has been permitted since. Think about that. Since 1991, more than 30 years, no independent team has been allowed to scan beneath the Sphinx. In an era where we've mapped the surface of Mars, we are not permitted to look beneath one of Earth's most famous monuments. Why? That question is the reason I went. But this suppression didn't start in the 1990s. It goes back much, much further. And the deeper you go, the stranger everything becomes. Here's the problem with the official story. The geology refuses to cooperate. The Sphinx is carved from the limestone bedrock of the Giza Plateau. Everyone agrees on that. But what mainstream Egyptology has struggled to explain, for decades now, is the erosion pattern on the Sphinx's body. The walls of the Sphinx enclosure show deep vertical weathering channels, the kind of erosion that is caused by one thing and one thing only: prolonged, heavy rainfall. Here's why that's unbelievable. Egypt has been a desert for approximately 5,000 years. The last period of sustained heavy rainfall in the Giza region ended somewhere around 10,000 to 9,000 BCE. This is not fringe theory. This is established climatological record. Dr. Robert Schoch, a geologist from Boston University, not a mystic, not a conspiracy theorist, a credentialed geologist, examined the erosion patterns in 1990 and reached a conclusion that shook the archaeological world. The Sphinx, based on its weathering alone, had to have been carved during a period of significant rainfall, which means it is not 4,500 years old. It is, at minimum, 7,000 years old, possibly 12,000, possibly older. When Schoch presented this at the Geological Society of America, the geologists in the room largely agreed with his methodology. The Egyptologists, ontos, did not. Because if the Sphinx is 12,000 years old, then an advanced civilization existed on Earth before Sumer, before Egypt, before everything we currently call the beginning of human history. And that rewrites everything. Then there's Edgar Cayce. Now, I know how that sounds. Cayce was a mystic, an American psychic who died in 1945, and normally that kind of source has no place in serious investigation. But here's what's interesting. Cayce claimed, decades before any geological surveys, that beneath the right paw of the Sphinx lay a hall of records, a repository of knowledge from a lost civilization. He said it would be discovered before the end of the millennium. In 1996, a team funded by the Shore Foundation conducted ground-penetrating radar surveys of the Sphinx. They found a cavity beneath the right paw, roughly 9 meters by 12 meters, rectangular. The Egyptian authorities stopped the excavation. The footage from that expedition has never been fully released. And that's exactly where my investigation began. Because those anomalies, the seismic data, the radar returns, the suppressed expeditions, they all pointed to the same location. I went in at 3:47 in the morning with 2 people I trust with my life and equipment that cost more than most people's cars. I won't say how access was obtained. I won't identify the individuals who helped make it possible. What I will tell you is that the entry point is not where most people would loot. It's not dramatic. It's not a grand doorway with hieroglyphs and torchlight. It's almost insultingly ordinary. A narrow passage partially obscured that someone who didn't know exactly what they were looking for would walk past without a second glance. The descent takes approximately 4 minutes at a careful pace. The walls are not cut limestone. They are different, smoother in a way that doesn't match the tool marks found elsewhere on the plateau. The thermal scanner was registering the ambient temperature dropping as we went lower. By the time the passage leveled out, we were reading approximately 14 degrees Celsius. Stable, consistent, the kind of temperature you find in deep, sealed spaces. And then, the chamber. I want to be precise here, because precision matters. The space is not enormous. It's not the vast underground library some researchers have fantasized about. What the footage shows is a roughly rectangular room, ceiling height approximately 4 meters, floor space perhaps 15 meters by 10. But the dimensions are not what's shocking. It's the condition. There is no debris, no collapse, no accumulation of sand that you would expect in any space that had been exposed to the Giza environment for thousands of years. The floor is clean, almost deliberately so, and the walls are something else entirely. More on that in a moment, because first you need to understand what the footage itself reveals about how this space was built. What you see on the footage, and I've had 3 separate people analyze it independently, should not exist under a structure built in 2500 BCE. I sent the raw footage to an architectural analyst based in Vienna, someone with no connection to Egyptology, no stake in the outcome, someone who analyzes structural engineering for a living. Her response, when she came back to me after 4 days, was a single line before her full report. She wrote, "The acoustic geometry of this room was intentional." What she means by that is this: the proportions of the chamber, the specific ratio of height to width to length, create what's called a standing wave resonance chamber. Sound produced at certain frequencies in that room doesn't dissipate. It amplifies. It bounces in a loop. This is not accidental architecture. This requires advanced understanding of acoustic physics. Understanding that, according to conventional history, the builders of the Sphinx simply did not possess. The walls show no hieroglyphs, no decorative elements, no cartouches of pharaohs claiming credit for construction, which, if you know anything about ancient Egypt, is extraordinarily unusual. Egyptian rulers inscribed their names on everything, on every wall, every column, every surface they could reach. The absence of any inscription here is, in its own way, louder than anything written could be. There is, however, one mark. But before I get there, here's where it stops being an archaeological story and starts becoming something else entirely. I contacted the Supreme Council of Antiquities 7 times across 4 months. By email, by formal written request, through a cultural liaison. I presented the footage in summarized form and requested a meeting with their archaeological division. I wanted to do this correctly. I wanted official eyes on what I had found before making any of this public. The first 3 attempts received no response. The 4th received a standard form reply stating that unauthorized access to Giza monuments is illegal and that any claims of undocumented chambers are, and I'm using their exact phrasing, without archaeological basis. The 5th attempt, I included specific coordinates and a frame-by-frame description of what the footage contains. After that, a researcher who had been helping me translate some of the technical material went quiet, stopped responding, for 6 weeks. When he finally did respond, it was a brief message asking me not to contact him again on this subject. No explanation, no anger, just a door closing. I'm not telling you there's a shadowy organization pulling strings. I don't know that. What I'm telling you is that when you have footage that, if authentic, represents one of the most significant archaeological discoveries in a century, and the response from official channels is silence, form letters, and a collaborator who suddenly disappears, questions need to be asked, loudly. And now, the detail I almost didn't include, the one that I keep coming back to, the one that changes the weight of everything else. And then there's the symbol. On the eastern wall of the chamber, at approximately chest height, there is a single carved mark, not painted, carved, into the stone itself. It is not a hieroglyph. I've shown it to 3 Egyptologists, 2 independently, and 1 through a mutual contact. None of them recognized it as belonging to any known ancient Egyptian writing system. One of them, Dr. Miriam Calloway, a specialist in pre-dynastic Egyptian iconography at the Oriental Institute in Chicago, said something that I haven't been able to let go of. She said, "This looks older than the script, older than the system, like something before the system existed." Before the system existed. The mark is a circle, bisected by a vertical line with two curved arms extending from the base. It resembles no known Egyptian symbol. It does, however, share structural similarity with markings found at Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, carvings dated to 11,000 years ago. A site that, like the Sphinx, forces us to reconsider what we know about human civilization and when it truly began. I cannot tell you definitively what that symbol means. I cannot tell you with certainty who built the chamber beneath the Sphinx, or when, or why. What I can tell you is what I saw, what I filmed, what 3 independent analysts reviewed and could not explain within the framework of conventional archaeology. So here's what I need you to decide. Option 1. This chamber is a natural formation, misidentified by someone operating equipment in the dark, and every expert who reviewed the footage was wrong. Option 2. Something was built beneath the Sphinx by someone, long before the pharaohs arrived, and that truth is being managed very, very carefully. Leave your answer A in the comments. I read every single one. If this investigation raised questions you can't shake, the next one will take you even deeper. Because what connects the Sphinx to a site discovered in 2024 off the coast of Cuba is something nobody is talking about yet. That video is coming soon. The truth is down there, sealed in stone, waiting. And someone very much wants it to stay that way.